Hello, Icons. It's Sean Kokoska, founder of Icon Coaching, and I have got one heck of an icon with us here today. His name's Chris Waters. He's out of Austin, Texas. Gang, his team is going to close 1,000 units this year. He's expanding all over the place through a franchise model, and I want you to hear a little bit about that. Yet, without any delay, I just want to welcome you to our webinar. Chris, welcome.
John, thanks so much for having me on, man.
Oh, my pleasure. Since I went over to your office yesterday, we spent a couple of hours together. I got to tour the facility, meet the people, see the systems, and see this machine that you've created in action. And man, I got to tell you, I had a blast, especially when we stepped in the conference room and started whiteboarding some stuff, man. That got my gears turning and just having a blast, bud. So great job. Welcome, man. So glad you made it.
I feel so blessed you live here in Austin. And what's crazy is I didn't know you lived here. I knew you had a place in San Diego, and I thought that's where you spent most of your time. But now that I know you're down the road, we got to spend more time together.
You can count on that, buddy. No doubt about it. So tell me, what do you want to share with our audience today? They're all dying to hear it.
Yeah. So, I mean, we've got this unbelievable system we created for people that want to scale the team model. About 5 to 6 years ago, I started building a team in the summer of 2010 and just started hammering the pavement, grinding expired withdrawals for sale by owners and scaled the team model really fast. And I actually, I was so busy like in the weeds, I really didn't really think I had done anything special at the time. But as time kind of progressed, people started telling me like, hey, Chris, you're probably one of the only people I know that have scaled the team model and been able to net $1 million in 3 years. And so I heard that a couple of times and I'm like, you know what? Maybe we are doing something special. And so I actually met somebody that I partnered with about 2 years ago, and I started basically letting her copy and paste every single one of my systems, processes, all the little tactical things to build a team model. And, she was able to triple her business in a year. And I was like, man, I think we're actually onto something here. And so we spent the last 2 years kind of putting together like a business in a box, like kind of like what you would expect with like McDonald's, where you get like all of these very clear deliverables and a very clear roadmap on how to scale and build the team organizational model in the real estate business.
Good job. So let's rewind a little bit though, buddy. So you're sleeping on your girlfriend's couch.
Oh, right? You want to go back that far? Oh, God.
and you're sleeping on your girlfriend's couch, wondering how to build this thing, how to scale this thing. And within 3 years, though, you got to a position that you net $1 million. So how did you do it? I mean, let's go kind of step by step, just kind of churn through it with me. What's the first thing you did as you began to scale the operation and leverage through people, systems, and technology to improve productivity and profit?
Yep. Yeah. So red IKEA couch. Thank you for the reminder. This red IKEA couch was like literally being held up by phone books. And it was a very— I
read about it in this, by the way. Yeah. This is Chris's book, by the way. We're going to talk about this a little bit later today. The $1 Million Real Estate Team. So he's documented it all, gang.
So one of the first steps is having humility. That's number one. And then number two, just being coachable. I had to get my teeth kicked in to, multiple times to finally get to a place where I was humble enough and coachable enough to go find other people that were a lot more successful than me. And so working with people just like you, Sean, that helped me kind of hone my skills from a salesperson perspective. I mean, those were really the first ingredients that kicked things off. It's so easy to say like be humble and be coachable, but for a lot of us high D, high driver personalities, like we don't like following the rule book. We like to try to innovate and recreate the wheel. And I read Tony Robbins' book, Awaken the Giant Within, and that book really spoke to me, because he says, go find other people that have been successful, build your foundation off their processes and systems, and then you can innovate and improve upon what they've already created. So I know that sounds like so elementary, but the humility and coachable, those core values if I wasn't in that place from a mindset perspective, I wouldn't have been able to grow so fast because I was just in such a low, bad place, just financially. I mean, literally, I didn't want to go move back into my parents' house because I had too much pride. So I lived in my girlfriend's apartment with three of her roommates, and so it was and a super humbling experience. So basically, I didn't have a lot of money. I had to go work the very inexpensive leads out there. So I was left with basically doing open houses and expireds and withdrawals. Those are the cheapest lead sources you can get. So I started. What's that?
No doubt. I agree.
So I began prospecting expireds and withdrawals and for sale by owners and building up my listing inventory. And simultaneously, I was also out there building relationships with a lot of vendors, like home warranty companies, homeowners insurance, our mortgage broker. So I was establishing some relationships with a lot of vendors that I was starting to send business to. And so as I was building listing inventory and going on appointments, what my day looked like was I basically from 8 until 11, 7 days a week for the first year, I was prospecting every morning. And then I was going on appointments in the afternoon and the evenings. And then I was also trying to work in meetings with vendors. So for anybody listening to this, we put together what we call a brand ambassador program. Some people call it a vendor program, where we would get other local businesses to chip into like a marketing kitty so that we could spend money on lead generation activities. And ultimately, that was kind of like the nest egg that helped me like kind of mitigate the fear of increasing my expenses by leveraging my relationships with outside vendors. And I use that money to help scale in lead generation tools like Boomtown. I got a system called Vulcan 7 for prospecting expireds and withdrawals, which is an amazing system. I started off using Redex. It was like $75 a month. I think at the time it was the cheapest one. But step number one is building your listing inventory. I know I'm not the first person to say that. But truthfully, like I had worked buyers previously and like I just couldn't handle as many buyers. And so again, I was super humble and I finally focused on just the listing side and built up my listing inventory. So basically, after kind of getting listings going, one of my first key hires was I got a virtual assistant through my Outdesk, and I couldn't afford a full-time assistant. So with a virtual assistant, it's only $1,200 versus $3,000 to $4,000 for a full-time assistant. Mm-hmm. So I kind of slowly phased my way into having an assistant. So that kind of helped me actually delegate tasks a lot faster because I was able to get a VA at a fraction of the cost.
So share with us, what were some of those tasks that you delegated to a VA?
Yeah, so like a lot of the listing management activities, like for example, when you get a listing, like getting everything organized, seller's disclosure, the listing agreement, all the attached documents, getting it all in a centralized place, creating the MLS listing, getting all the documents in the MLS, going on Zillow, Trulia, Realtor.com, all these third-party websites, making sure that all your photos are uploaded, everything looks pretty, putting stuff on Craigslist, anything email marketing related, helping me manage the contract to close checklist, making sure I was staying on track with dates and whatnot. So a lot of those types of tasks that are, very administrative type tasks were the very first things I delegated. And that was a huge help because I did it really early on, and I was able to do it because it was, again, a VA is very inexpensive. So I think I probably delegated those tasks probably a lot faster than most people do because they wait until they get enough money in the bank to be able to pay like a full-time, executive assistant in their office. So I got that really quickly. And then as soon as I started getting a lot of listings, it started generating a lot of buyer leads. And so I immediately started going on a recruiting binge and recruiting agents to start working the buyer leads coming in. And then at, about a year in, I had a pretty amazing relationship. Everybody loved me, title companies, the mortgage guys, because I was sending them lots of business. And so I was able to start doing some of these co-marketing agreements at the time and getting advertising dollars from, a plethora of different people. And so I was, within about 12 months time was able to bring in about $2,500 in advertising dollars. And so I used that revenue to cover the cost of systems like Boomtown, which is what I gave to my buyer agent team. And then we allocated the rest of the dollars towards lead generation via Google AdWords. So we were getting inbound sign calls through, the for sale signs. We were advertising them on Craigslist and different third-party websites. And then we also had the Google AdWords budget we were spending generating leads for the buyer agents. So at the time, like a year in, I'm running around with my head cut off. Like literally, it's like, I'm like CXO. Like I'm wearing all these different hats, and it's literally, it was chaos. And like I'm going to tell anybody that wants to follow in these footsteps, like you're going to be managing chaos. As the organization's gotten bigger, as time progressed, I'm able to take off the hat, right, and like hand it over to somebody else, and they become a specialist in that role. And that takes a little bit of time, but I think one of the keys to scaling really quickly is like, basically only manage that job for as short a time period as humanly possible, and get your revenue to a point where you have enough core capital to where you can cover the cost of that person. So like kind of general rule of thumb, like in financial, and this is all stuff I picked up on in books, is you want to have a minimum of 2 months of core capital. And then anytime you start like a new initiative, like if it's going to be a hire new employee, start a new lead generation activity, you want to have 6 months of core capital to cover that one specific activity. So that way you sock the money away to the bank, and you don't quit too early. Like a lot of people will start some new lead generation activity, or maybe they hire an inside salesperson, right? And like they're like, oh crap, I just burned through like $10,000. I don't have enough money left in the bank. I got to stop doing this. So I think that's another huge mistake, is people don't stack away enough cash, because there's a cash conversion cycle with everything you do. So what I mean by that is like when you hire an inside salesperson to start helping you book appointments for you so that you can just go on listing appointments all day, that inside salesperson has to build their pipeline just like you did, and that takes time. And then once you get that listing, you got to start marketing it, then it's got to go in escrow, and then you collect the dollars, right? So like best case, in 90 to 120 days, you're starting to get revenue from the activity of that new inside sales agent hire. So it's super critical. You've got your core capital for your business as it is, and then you add additional money for every single time you add some new activity that's going to be a lead generation activity, or something ops related. So you don't get in a place where you're coming from a mindset of limitation and fear, and you're just more prepared and you're ready to seize the opportunities ahead of you.
No doubt. Let me just interrupt and say one thing. Guys, if you have questions for Chris, just type it in the chat bar. I'll ask the questions. We'll make certain that your questions are addressed. I want this to be about you, in other words. I want you to get from this webinar what you came to this webinar for. So good job. Real quick, let's step back to your brand ambassador program. And let's fast forward to today. And what is the brand ambassador program? What is that spinning off in terms of revenue to your organization now?
Yeah, so now we are getting over $250,000, almost 300,000 actually this year from our brand ambassador program. And it's a beautiful thing, because it's not about me just sending referrals to other people in my brand ambassador program. It's become a mastermind of local business owners. And one of the most impactful things we do is a monthly mastermind where each business owner has the opportunity to go on the hot seat. And while on the hot seat, they talk about the 3 things that they do really, really well, that they exceed at, that they think they're better than anyone else. And then they pose to the group the one thing that is their biggest weakness and their biggest challenge. And everybody goes in a round table and tries to help that business owner overcome that challenge.
That's awesome.
So that literally, like people tell me all the time, like, Chris, I know you send me referrals and you're putting me on your marketing material and all these things, but they're like, that one thing is the most impactful thing that I'm a part of, I've ever been a part of, and it adds hundreds of thousands of dollars to my revenue as a business annually. And so like anybody listening to this, like this is something you can easily put in place. And I think a lot of people, forget like the knowledge they have and how much of an impact that could have on other local business owners, because you just start taking it for granted and you kind of forget how special certain things are. Like, we're in the sales business. It's about managing like a sales pipeline. And like for a guy that's got a plumbing business or like a granite countertop business or electrician or whatever, they're not in the sales business. Like if you could just teach them some basic things on how to manage a sales pipeline, and like perhaps hire an inside salesperson, for example, to help manage all the inbound leads and different opportunities out there, like that could grow the guy's business exponentially.
Undoubtedly. So you're helping them accomplish more, and as a result, they're willing to invest in you. In your book here, you reference a study done by the National Association of Realtors that states, and I can't remember the exact figure, I'm sure you do, for every real estate transaction, something like $78,000 is actually pumped into the economy from one real estate transaction. What's the number?
I should know this, right? It's like 83,000 and change. It's like 83,000 and something dollars is the economic impact when a real estate transaction occurs. So real estate agents have such a massive impact on the economy, like huge. And we have the ability to influence a lot of our partnerships with different vendors through referral to our clients. So, I guess, one thing obviously I feel like I feel obligated to say is it's important you build a brand ambassador program with really good partners. So don't just go to somebody that's going to throw money at you. Like, they need to actually be good at their job and do a great job in their business and be like full-time committed to it. And I know that sounds stupid, but like, I literally screwed this up. Like, I started working with this mortgage company, and we were doing some joint advertising, and I was sending him customers. And on the service, like the customer service side, he was doing a horrendous job. Like, when I started dialing in, like, I started going to his office and like spending time there trying to figure out like what was going on, because I wanted the relationship to work, but my customers weren't having a very positive experience. I go to his office and I start discovering very quickly from getting to know his team, he doesn't even show up to work until 12 o'clock. Like, he'll work from 12 until 4. And then in the mornings, like, he's off, walking his dogs and like going to the gym. Like, he's basically working half a day. And here I am working like 18 hours a day. Like, and I want someone that's going to crush it for my customers, that's going to send me referrals. And, I'm not trying to burn my own name referring some vendor that's not worth it. Right. So you've got to find somebody that is really, really has a big vision for their business. And it's more than just the money.
So you've got to vet those
money. Absolutely.
Yeah. Very cool. Very cool. All right. I'm getting a little bit of reverberation here. So Chris, I'm just going to let you talk.
Okay. Cool. So I guess kind of going back to like scaling the team model, your first couple key hires are a virtual assistant, and then in the background, you're putting together your brand ambassador program, and you're building up your listing inventory. I have found, like, for every 10 listings you have, like, you definitely need to have 1 to 2 buyer's agents, because they're going to generate enough buyer leads and the open house opportunities that can come from those. So those are some of your initial hires. And then you're going to get to a point where you're going to need to identify a buyer agent team leader. And this is a crucial hire. If your buyer agent team leader is going to be responsible for future recruiting, selection, training, leading, motivating. They're going to help you put together your training guide for your buyer agent team. So that's a really pivotal hire you're looking for when you start building your buyer agent team. And then as your transactions grow, you're going to have to start hiring operational staff full time. So like you're going to outgrow that virtual assistant role, where you're going to need somebody in the office, like an office manager, that's going to help your buyer agents. Like, maybe it's getting checks out, commission checks, payroll, things like that. So your office manager, that's going to come at a certain point, typically when you've got probably anywhere between 4 to 5 agents plus yourself. That's when you're definitely going to be pushing the limits on a virtual assistant, and you're going to need to bring somebody in-house, because you're probably still working on listings and you're running around like a chicken with your head cut off. So those are some of your first very initial key hires. Some other like huge ahas that I can give people is something I think that's super important, which I mentioned earlier, to get really disciplined on, is all the financial elements of your business. Make sure you've got you might personally right now, the way you manage your income and expenses is just looking at your bank statement, and that works, but it's not a very good habit to be building. And like managing your money and managing the financial side of your business, like most major businesses have a CFO, right? Well, in the beginning stages of building your business, you don't have the money for a CFO. So you should really rely on a bookkeeper and leverage a bookkeeper to help you make sure you're constantly auditing your books, and you're starting to build that habit of checking your numbers and how your business is operating. You're gonna find when you get crazy busy, right? You're not going to do a good job making sure you turn off certain lead generation tools and other expenses that you might be paying for to operate your business. The other thing is, what's super, super important in the real estate industry is you've got to get really disciplined at measuring what's called your client acquisition cost. So you can have an unlimited marketing budget if you track your client acquisition cost. So basically, client acquisition cost is super simple to track. You look at what amount of money spent on that campaign, how much gross revenue did you generate from that campaign. So something cool your bookkeeper can help you with, like in QuickBooks, is categorize where each deal came from a lead sourcing perspective to help you make sure you stay on top of putting money only in the campaigns that are actually working. And
that's solid advice, Chris. Let me just throw something else out there. There's something called RE Profit, and it's PROPHET. So RE for real estate, and profit, PROPHET. And for around $350 per year, it will take all of those expenses, categorize them, and give you your return on investment as well as client acquisition costs. So It's built by realtors for realtors. And I would really encourage you to check that out. It's a dynamic program.
That's awesome. I got to write that down. I'll have to go check that out.
You got it.
Yeah. So, I mean, CAC, like in the marketing world, I'm saying all these things, and I hope everybody, all these things I'm sharing with you guys, this is all stuff I learned from reading books and I picked up along the way. So, if you're listening to this, it probably seems like overwhelming, like all the ideas. And Sean, you have like some of the most amazing guests that are performing at the highest level in the entire United States. And if you're in the early climb of building your team, all of this sounds like super overwhelming. So like the best thing that you can do, in my opinion, to get crystal clear about what to do in the future and how to lay out a roadmap is there's a great tool. Actually, I was telling Sean about this yesterday. There's a guy named Vern Harnish. He wrote the book The Rockefeller Habits. He wrote a book called Scaling Up, and he's got a free tool on his website through the Giselle's Institute, and he calls it the one-page strategic plan. And using the one-page strategic plan, this can kind of help you identify what are the quarterly tactical operating priorities you need to focus on. And you need to put that on a plaque, blow it up, and keep that sucker in front of your face at all times. And that's so important because as real estate agents, we get so much stuff, so many ideas thrown at us. Test this new lead gen tool. Go do this. And it's so easy to get distracted. And I'm the worst person. I mean, I'll chase a shiny flying squirrel like nobody's business. So
it's shiny flying squirrel. I love it.
I'm the worst. So literally the idea is what Jim Collins, Good to Great, he came up with something called the BHAC, your big, hairy, audacious goal.
Yep. And
he says that people always underestimate what they're going to do in 10 years time, but they typically always overestimate what they're going to get done in a 1-year time frame. And so what that means is we need to know what we're going to do over the next 12 months, and we need to drill down to the very specific action items and break it down quarterly and make sure that those are the only things we focus on that quarter. And whenever we got these flying squirrels coming at us, we just need to write it down. And then when you do your quarterly strategic plan, look at it and say, hey, is this in alignment for me to help me accomplish this 1-year goal? So, that's an amazing resource, the one-page strategic plan. It's on the Giselle's Institute. Vern Harnish, that's what he puts together and offers as a free tool online. And it can help you just create a roadmap. My advice if you're going to do this is he has what's called a SWOT analysis, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And before you start filling out the one-page strategic plan, that's what you start with. So fill out your strengths and weaknesses, what are you good at, what are you bad at, and all that's very internal, into your business. And then the opportunities and threats are outside of your organization. So you start with a SWOT analysis, and then that helps you to actually start filling out your quarterly tactical operating priorities. So you can prioritize exactly what you need to be working on right now to get where you want to go. So
all right. Would you mind repeating where you could find that?
So you can go on Google and type in one page strategic plan. Like just type in one page strategic plan, and I'm almost positive it'll pop up on the first page of Google. And it's Vern Harnish. He wrote the book Scaling Up, and he also wrote the book The Rockefeller Habits. And he has something called the Giselle's Institute, and that's the website. Where
just when he put that on our chat, he assigned a link to that. So thank you, Robert. And Junkie also asked this. She said, when you started, how were you prepared to really to get those listings? How did you prepare yourself for that? And I venture to guess that the answer is, well, you weren't, right? Some of the best advice I got from a mentor of mine was swamp the boat, meaning you may not have all the models, you may not have all the systems, you might not have all the tools, yet when you swamp the boat, guys, you'll figure it out. Yeah. I mean, as you get busier, it exposes the weaknesses. And then, of course, once the weakness is exposed, awareness is the first step to positive change. So don't let going out and getting a massive number of listings, don't let not having the systems and models and tools in place. Just go do it. You'll figure it out on the back end.
Literally, like there's some saying like necessity is the mother of all inventions, right? So like for 6 months, like it's not like I came out of the gate picking up lots of listings. Like my first 6 months on the phone, I was horrendous. I mean, I'm like sitting, my girlfriend, I actually ended up marrying her. She's my wife now. And
you just had a baby, 14 months ago?
Yeah, she would hear me in the mornings at 7:45 start making calls. And she would say, Chris, you sound like a robot. I wouldn't buy a bar of soap from you. Why are you even wasting your time? Like, hang up the phone and go do something else. So like I guess in the first 6 months, I just got lucky, like getting people to actually even be willing to let me go meet them. And I wasn't booking a ton of appointments. Like I was lucky to get one listing appointment a week. Like that was a good week, one a week. And I would prospect 7 days a week. So it was just more through like, sheer determination and will that I was able to like get at least one out of a 7-day, period of making calls. And what was a huge game changer for me, because let me back up my listing presentation. Let me tell you what that looked like. It was a one page little CMA sheet about that long. And it was me trying to build rapport with them and sitting at their kitchen table and then asking them a bunch of questions about what went wrong with the previous listing agent. And then telling them, okay, that's exactly what I'm going to do differently. I'm going to make sure I do those things for you. So literally, that's all I did. Like I went in like little one-page CMA thing. I did a terrible job pricing some of the properties, got my butt kicked many times, learned a lot there, and definitely had my share of listings that didn't go very smoothly the first 12 months. So you just got to dive head first in, and you just got to know that, again, necessity is mother of all inventions. You're going to get better. The huge turning point for me was I got so tired of sucking and being told like I was never going to excel at this that I went out and got a coach. I went and got a coach like you, Sean. And basically through my sales coach, I was able to start learning how to get better on the phone, like kind of the overall overview of like how a call should go, how to handle objections, so all the very tactical things on the phone. Like I started getting, in like 3 months time after getting a coach, I went from booking one appointment a week to 4 to 5 appointments per week within 90 days.
And then, you went from one appointment a week to how many?
4 to 5 listing appointments per week.
There you go. And then you started scaling through your marketing efforts. You found yourself going on 40 listing appointments a month. Yeah. And it was time to start scaling through the listing side and hiring on the right listing specialists, right?
Right. Exactly. And like, it's like, I know all these results for a lot of people sound like way up here in the air and you can't make it happen. The thing is though, like, as you knock down these dominoes, like, your results just start exponentially growing. So on month 6, I was only booking one appointment a week, but then I got a coach. Within 90 days, I'm booking 4 a week. And then about 9 months into that year, I was able to have enough revenue in the bank to be able to hire an inside salesperson. So I hired an inside sales agent that started booking appointments for me, and he was actually 10 times better than I was at booking appointments. And in his first month, he helped me get 12 listings. So I went from taking 6 listings to 12 in one single month. with an inside salesperson.
Well, it only proves that if your business isn't where it could be, gang, or should be, you're probably just missing a key relationship. Now, a mistake that a lot of people make, and Chris, let's be honest, a lot of people don't like to lead generate. So what they do is they say, well, I'm just going to hire somebody to do that. They hire them on and say, well, here's maybe some things you should know. Now go conquer the world. And that person fails miserably. See, Chris, if you'd just hired an ISA day one, let's assume you had the money, chances are that person wouldn't have been as good because you couldn't have trained them to the level that you did because you went through the brain damage to learn the lessons, right?
Yep.
So the good news is, lead generation, well, yes, it's something you can delegate. The bad news, if you want to do it right, you get to master it and manualize it first. Then you can delegate it.
That's right, man. You can't teach it until you've mastered it. You can't BS your way through helping somebody, book appointments on expired and withdrawals. And expired and withdrawals, I know everybody says call expired and withdrawals. Like if you join, Keller Williams or Century 21 or whatever, and their ramp up programs for new agents, they say call expired and withdrawals. Everybody says to do it, but there's very few people that actually do it successfully. And the name of the game is really in the follow up. So you'll get these occasional quick hits with expireds where they'll the first time you call them, they're like, yeah, let's go meet tomorrow. But 80% of the juice is the people that say, you know what, I'm not ready to sell, but call me at this date, and then you follow up with them. 99% of agents don't make those follow-up calls, and the number of calls being made to expireds that were from 90 days ago, 180 days ago, 365, totally non-existent. There's no competition. So if you can just follow up with people, and that's probably a key discipline I learned from the coach I hired, was every time you hang up the phone with a lead, set a to-do activity of when you're going to follow up with that lead. Another little trick is when you're on the phone with an expired and you identify that this person really isn't well positioned to sell yet, try to think about your lead buckets, right? You got hot leads, you got trash, and then you got nurture, for example. A nurture lead is somebody that's 6 to 12 months out, for example. When you have somebody that is definitely going to sell at some point in the near future, keep in mind that's a nurture, and you want to build a massive database of nurtures because you make millions of dollars with building a database of nurtures. But the key with the nurture when you're on the phone with them is ask them, hey, Mr. Seller, when would you like me to follow up with you? Write down that date, cut the time in half, and then that's when you start your call cadence of following up with.
I trust you all heard that. Write the date down, cut it in half, and that's when you start the call cadence, because they may say it's 3 months. People overestimate what they can accomplish in the short term and underestimate what they're going to accomplish in the long term. And I think that term, by the way, is called hyperbolic discounting. And same thing with an expired listing. They're going to take action in 50% of the time that they say that they're going to.
Yep.
So, by the way, you're talking about coaching. And guys, if you're serious about getting a coach, somebody that's going to align with you and help you achieve what you choose to achieve, I'm going to ask you to do something. See, I want to apply for that job. I believe that we have the best proven models on the face of this planet, guys, as it relates to coaching and training individuals. So I'm going to ask you just to text one word to this phone number. Just text assessment. And what we're going to do is we're going to set you up with a complimentary business assessment. We're going to have you rate yourself on 10 different points of business development, leadership, and productivity. And we're going to identify the lead generation strategies that you're not currently using that work, okay? Here's the phone number I'm going to ask you to text it to. Just text it to 512-572-ICON or 4266. So just do that right away. And what we'll do is we'll get a consultant on the phone with you. We'll walk you through this process. And remember, awareness, well, it's the first step to positive change. All right. So now, Chris, back to you, buddy. And thanks for letting me throw that in there real quick, gang. Okay, now let's fast forward to today. How many buyer's agents are you currently employing?
So we have 25 buyer's agents, and we have 5 listing agents. So roughly 30 salespeople, depending on the day. So about 30 salespeople.
Gotcha. Okay. And average production for a buyer's agent on your team, what does that look like?
Our average buyer's agent's doing between 30 and 35 transactions. And then my average listing agent is doing between 80 and 100 deals. So my listing agents are highly leveraged because we've got transaction coordinators, VAs, listing managers. We've started incorporating the showing assistant model into our buyer agent team. And so that's beginning to help them start selling a lot more homes, doing 3, 4, 5 transactions. Actually, for people listening to this webinar, if you're like at a point in your business where you have a big buyer business and you want to pivot to the listing side, like getting a showing assistant could be a great way for you to start shifting your focus to being on the listing side and delegating a lot of the time you do showing property and driving people around.
And Junkie, thanks for the shout out, by the way. I've been working with Junkie and her husband for quite a number of months here, and they're getting massive traction. So Junkie, thanks for being here. Thanks for the shout out. I appreciate that. Okay, so you're still using virtual assistants. How many admin do you have full time?
So to support those 30 salespeople, we have 3 closing coordinators, and they're managing a pipeline between active, pending, and sold, or excuse me, active, pending, and coming soon. They're managing a pipeline of between 150 and 200 files. So I have found that with each kind of transaction coordinator, they can manage a pipeline of about 50 people at some stage in the process. We've also got a listing manager that helps, like, correspond with our photographer. We have a full-time photographer on staff just because we shoot so many photographs. We do so many properties.
Smart.
And we also have a virtual assistant that helps like manage a lot of the back-end marketing of each individual listing. And then we have a full-time person on our team that oversees the marketing of the property. For the team. Like they oversee our digital campaigns for lead generation, help oversee some of our offline stuff, newspaper, radio, TV, billboard, postcard, all those kind of things. That's the lane she's in. Sean, one thing I got to tell you is, what really turned me on to you was I'm a big believer in what Tony Robbins says, which is you got to follow other people that are where you want to be, and then you got to model their success. And so a guy that I have like massive admiration and respect for is a guy named Mark Spain.
Oh yeah.
And he's somebody that you had on here, and you coach his company. And yeah. I'm pretty sure he has the #1 team in the entire United States, right?
Yeah. Well, the results haven't been posted to Wall Street Journal yet. However, yes, you will see him at the top.
So, I'm not just saying this because we're doing this webinar together, but like I told you yesterday, like I'm ready to like get you dialed in to start working with our team and help our buyer agents, our listing agents, and our inside sales team. So I'm super excited to start working with you. I literally wouldn't be sitting here doing this interview with you if it wasn't for coaching. There's so many, like, again, shiny objects out there to go get lead generation systems, all these different things. But you need someone to like coach you through like that, how to basically get through the formula. They need to help you like understand the formula that makes that system work. Like every single system out there that you can go buy, there's a formula to making that system work. And so if you go get a coach that already knows the formula and can teach it to you, they're going to be able to teach it to you in a matter of, a month, 2 months. If you try to do it on your own, you could spend a year, 2 years, 3 years trying to figure it out on your own. So anyways, coaching is, God, it's the biggest thing anybody can do to grow their business just exponentially.
Right. Okay. So Chris, I want to step back to expireds real quick. So when you were calling all these expireds, what did you say? How did you say it? And then what did that follow-up look like?
So the first initial call is really simple. Hey, this is Chris Waters. I'm a real estate agent. I noticed your house got taken off the market, and I was curious, are you interviewing agents for the job of getting your home sold? So my goal on the phone was I was like waiting for them to throw objections at me. And so I developed, and this all came from coaching, I developed what are called unique value propositions to overcome objections on the phone. So a seller would say, you know what, I'm not going to hire another agent again. I got locked into this 6-month contract. My response was, great, Mr. Seller, that's exactly why we should meet. I have this easy exit listing program that says if you're unhappy at any time, I'm going to let you out of the contract. What works better for you, mornings or afternoons, so I can sit down and share with you more about this and how I'm going to actually get your home sold this time. So like you hear the same objections with expireds. This goes for anything, like your listings, buyers, you hear the same like 6 to 7 objections. And So I call them carrots. You have these carrots to overcome the objection. So every objection, you have a solution, and then you close for the appointment. What works better, mornings or afternoons? So it's, again, this all came from coaching, developing these unique value propositions, the easy exit listing. We had at the time, I had like literally 154-point marketing checklist. It was our documented checklist that I gave to my virtual assistant. So a seller would call in, or I'd be prospecting and expired, and the guy would say, man, he just put a sign in the yard. He did an open house. Like, I had like 6 people. It was a horrendous experience. Like, his marketing was horrible. And my response was, you know what, John, that is exactly why we should meet. I'm going to sit down with you. I'm going to show you my 154-point marketing plan. When's a good time for me to do that? Do morning or afternoons work better for you? So every time, like literally with expired calls, what you're trying to do is you're trying to get them to voice their frustration, and then you want to have the solution. So that's really the secret sauce with expireds. So that's really what you should be trying to shoot for. Like, with Vulcan 7, Vulcan7.com, expired system, you can see photos of the house. So like, I'd be talking to the seller and I'd be like, Mr. Seller, I'm looking at these photos of your house. Like, I cannot believe your house is not sold. Like, what on earth went wrong? And you're going to get sellers that are going to be like hesitant. They're going to be like, I don't know, I'm not a realtor. And so you may have to dig a little bit deeper, and you'll be like, well, if you don't mind me asking, like, if you were the agent, like, what's one thing you wish would have been improved upon? So you may have to dig a little bit, but once you get some kind of ammo, you can use one of your carrots to set the appointment and go for the close. The other key thing on expireds is you need to figure out what their motivation was. So like, for example, the seller fires off and says, no, I don't have any interest. Stop calling me. Leave me alone. Hey, Mr. Seller, are you still taking offers on the house? I was just curious. And they're going to be like, I would probably still take an offer. And then you're like, oh, well, where were you headed? So you try to very quickly early on in the conversation, you want to try to figure out where were they going? What was the goal? And then you ask them, well, have your plans changed? Do you no longer need to move to Oregon to go see your mom? Is that no longer a priority for you? And they're probably going to respond and say, yes, actually, I still need to go to Oregon to see my mom, but I'm just too frustrated with this process. And then you dive into, well, what went wrong? Like, what could have gone better? Like, what do you wish your agent would have done differently? So, and then when they throw in like, what they were frustrated with, that's when you come up with the carrots, and then you go for the close. So that's kind of the basic rundown of expireds. And there's
at Icon, we apply the same methodology, right? Where, most people would get engaged in coaching, yet most of the companies out there, like the Ferries and the others, what they're doing is they lock you into a 12-month contract. We have an easy exit contract too. I mean, the contract, frankly, is as strong as the value that we provide. And if we're not providing value, let's tear that thing up and part as friends. Is that okay? I mean, it's really that simple, right?
Man, that's good to know, Sean. I didn't know that, actually. That's cool.
Well, there's got to be mutual value. There's no question in my mind. Win-win or no deal. That's how I feel about it. Okay, so Junkie asked another question. She said, what if you have no expireds, hardly any for sale by owners? What other lead systems would you use, lead generation systems?
So my follow-up question to her would be, and that's a great point because we're in a really good market right now, and there's very few expireds and withdrawals and FSBOs. So another thing you can do is you can do circle prospecting. So basically, there's a system out there called Mojo. And Mojo, you can draw a polygon around a neighborhood, and it'll extract the phone numbers for that area. So this is what's a beautiful thing about in a hot market is when you start calling sellers in that neighborhood, you can call them up and say, hey, Mr. Seller, my name's Chris Waters, Waters International Realty. I'm calling because I've got tons of buyers looking to be in your neighborhood. Have you ever considered possibly selling your home? So what you're doing in circle prospecting is you're trying to develop, again, a database of nurture opportunities, the games and the follow-up. So all you're trying to do is get people to say yes, no, or maybe. So you're looking for people that ideally would be interested in possibly selling over the next 12 months. So if they say, yes, I would consider selling in the next 12 months, your goal your next couple steps in that call, and your goal is to collect some information from them. So one, you're asking them for permission of when you can call them back and set that to-do activity. You're asking them for a valid email. Say, hey, Mr. Seller, I sent out a monthly market snapshot for your neighborhood. I send this out once a month. I promise not to spam you. I just share with other homeowners in the neighborhood what's going on. And I send this out at no charge. Would you like me to go ahead and put you on my newsletter with all the things happening in your neighborhood? So get their email address. Make sure you've got a valid contact number. You've got valid name, valid email, valid phone, and follow-up date. Those 4 pivotal pieces. And then add them to your database and put them in that nurture category. And then again, cut the time in half of when they say to call them. And you're going to have this huge database of people where they said, you're going to start building this huge database. Like I look at ours now, in like August, September, October, November, we have 150 people that said they would be interested in selling in August. 200 people that said September. And so granted, not all of those people are going to sign, but shoot, you're literally in a month's time, you could probably develop, one person could develop a nurture database in a month, close to 100 people. I mean, if you spent 3 hours a day, every day, calling through your neighborhood, you could have a database of close to 100 nurtures every month. And if you can get 10% of those people that said, yes, they are interested in possibly selling next year or within the next year, you're going to have a huge business. You're going to have more business than you even know what to do with as time progresses and you continue the follow-up. But that's where people fail. People do not stay. They're not consistent. They don't follow up with those to-do activities. They let reactive type things prevent them from staying focused on what's most important in their business.
Right. So Chris, right now you're in a position of scaling your operation, and you've chosen to do that through franchising. Yep. So tell me, what are you looking for in a potential franchise candidate?
So honestly, the most important thing for a franchise candidate, it all boils down to core values. Like, I want somebody that just has this massive, huge picture. Like they want to dominate their town. They want to, just provide an unbelievable service for their clients. They're coachable. They are willing to stay humble. This is a key quality, is like as you're having success, you remain humble. That is super, super important. Like we've recruited real estate agents that started, crushing it. They were having months making $20,000, $30,000, and then they stopped being coachable. So success through humility, like huge core value for me. So the number one thing for me is to align with other people that are big thinkers, that want to scale fast. They're willing to take massive action. They're coachable. They're humble. Like those are honestly the key ingredients. Like when we first started talking like 45 minutes ago, like those are the key pieces. I can give someone like 20 different lead generation systems to go get and like more leads than you'll ever be able to handle. But if you don't have that mindset, you're gonna fail massively at being able to implement, because you're not going to listen to the formula it takes to make that system work. And then how are you going to be an effective leader and build people around you and help other people be successful if you yourself don't exhibit these qualities? I mean, you got to lead by example. And if you're not a fiercely committed person that's relentless and determined, other people are going to see that. Like you can't just be inconsistent and come into the office at 12 o'clock like the mortgage guy I used to work with and expect the rest of your team to come every morning at 8 o'clock. So those are the key things. Anybody interested in building the team organizational model within a brokerage, those are the type of people I'm looking for that I want to partner with, just like Chad and Lori. And, I have spent the last 2 years building all these hard assets for our partners so that they don't have to go reinvent the wheel, from the listing team, the buyer agent team, inside sales. We also built a proprietary Salesforce application that I've got over $500,000 in. That is the most robust thing you've ever seen. It's basically, imagine Boomtown, Commissions Inc., all these platforms combined into one. So it does your transaction management, does your lead management. We're not in the technology business, but it was a necessity so that you could scale and keep communication really fluid between your team members. We also have this amazing integration tool. That way you don't have to log in to all these different auxiliary lead generation systems. You only log into one system. So anyways, we've got all these great assets that we get to share. And then, I've got this very clear roadmap that people follow and help them kind of with that formula. And part of that formula includes working with people just like you, Sean, on the coaching side, because it is so critical to your success. The real estate business is really simple. Generate leads, convert the leads, service the customer, and the home plate is build raving fans. So you got a constant, circle of life, if you will, for a realtor of raving fans that keep sending you deals through referral. So
I love it. Now, Chris, you're going to do something with the book. You said if they buy the book, you're going to do something else. And forgive me, I can't remember what the name of that system's called. It's like 30-day launch formula or something like that.
Okay, so I brought this in. So this is our Jumpstart guide, and this is it's packed with information. This is basically exactly what our buyer agents, when they join the company, this is exactly what our buyer agents go through. This took me 7 years to develop, like pain and tears and like heartache, like you wouldn't believe. And it's basically kind of a Jumpstart program and a guide to help you build a team of Navy SEALs. So if you're trying to build a real estate team, you want a bunch of Navy SEALs. You don't want foot soldiers. So this has all the ingredients to do that, along with like the expectations and the key performance indicators and the standards you need to be setting for your buyer agents, because not every single person we bring on makes it through this program. And like, it's a blessing in disguise, because if they drop out in that first couple weeks, I know they don't have what it takes to be able to constantly be following up with their leads, managing the database, and working the leads I'm paying for and getting them converted. So for anybody that buys our book, this is not some BS ebook. Nothing against ebooks, by the way. I think they're awesome. But this took over a year to put together. And it's my journey of building the team model. And I break it down into like 3 phases: the early climb, the awkward teenager phase, and the explosive growth stage. And it's literally my journey to building a team and everything I went through. And I mean, we just published this 6 weeks ago. So it's got all of the tools and systems we use. And like, these tools are all stuff I've used like personally. So there's nothing in here I talk about that I haven't used. And we still use a lot of them till today. So anyways, if you buy a copy of the book, we will be giving away this Jumpstart guide to anybody that buys the book. Gosh, I think this is worth more than my book.
So we're going to send it to him in a PDF download, right?
Yeah. The book's $20. I'm not in the business of trying to sell books. I'm not trying to start, be a publisher. I literally wrote this book just as a helpful guide for people. And most importantly, I wanted to connect with more like-minded people all over the United States that are interested in scaling the team model. And it's been pretty cool. I was telling you, Sean, earlier, I had somebody fly in from Virginia and didn't know them, but they literally bought a plane ticket and flew down here. And they've been touring my office. So if you buy the book, I'm going to email you a PDF of the Jumpstart guide. And then something else is, everybody that buys our book, we have this really cool Facebook group. It's a kind of a private little mastermind group of people that are trying to build the team model. And so there's a lot of questions, like Q&A going on in that group. And so you'll get an invitation for that. And then the last thing, and Sean, I know we didn't talk about this, but I'll throw this out there. And my team's probably going to kill me for saying this, but that's all right. If you guys want to come and see our team here in Austin, I will take. You guys can come in with open doors and spend a couple hours touring our office. You can meet some of the people on our team, and you can see what the end result looks like of scaling to 1,000 transactions. My goal is to catch up to your buddy Mark Spain, who's been on the show, and get to 3,000. But anyways, if you buy the book, Jumpstart guide, I'll email you this in a PDF. You'll get a link to our private Facebook group, and then I'll send you an invitation to come to Austin, and you can spend half a day kind of seeing our operation.
I love it. So let's get down to some tactical thoughts and some ideas that I know you can share with these guys that'll blow their minds. Tell me, what is the best marketing idea that you've ever implemented?
Best marketing idea ever implemented. So that's I hate to get granular here, but that's very specific to the stage of growth you're in. So in the early climb, the most amazing marketing thing I put in place was, it wasn't really marketing, it was prospecting, being prospecting based. It was, well, okay, actually that's not true. So in the circle, some things you can do to enhance circle prospecting and expireds and withdrawals is like, you're going to be building this huge database of people, you know, that are interested at some point in possibly selling. And so we're doing the monthly market snapshot thing, which is cool. We're sending those out once a month. But something else I implemented, and this sounds dumb, but I was like blown away by the results. We started sending out educational emails. So when I started the team, like nobody knew who I was. Like I wasn't on radio, TV, and billboard. Like nobody had any clue who I was. And I was like, people say I look young now. I looked even younger then. And so like I didn't have a way to create credibility with people because nobody knew who I was. So we put in place a video. We started working with a company called Viral Marketing, and I started doing these video emails. And you know, they're basically like 2 to 3 minute educational videos. And so when I was building my database of expireds and doing the circle prospecting and all those things, I was sending them the market snapshot. I was making the follow-up calls. And this is what was really freaking ninja was, so Viral Marketing, when you send out that video email, Viral sends you a report back, and it tells you what links they're clicking on your video blog. So there's a button on there that says like home value report or search for homes. And so they send you an Excel file, and you know what people are clicking on. So I was able to, I can't even tell you how many, probably hundreds of thousands of dollars I made, because like I built this big nurture pipeline, for example. And back then I didn't do a very good job of like cutting the time in half and like following that. I know that now. I'm telling everybody you need to do that. But when people would engage in those video email newsletters and they clicked on that home value report, I would call them right after they clicked on it. And it was like, you know, the people, like the response I would get from sellers was like, man, like this must be a sign from the universe that maybe I'm going to sell my house because I was thinking about it. You were on my website. I was reading your blog, and I clicked to find out what my home is worth on your website. And so, anyways, you know,
and then my phone rang. And then my phone rang.
Yeah, like the you know, in marketing, the goal is to build as many brand impressions as possible to create top of mind awareness. So you want to do that by land, by air, by sea, right? So like call them, send them the monthly market snapshots. The video email is another way to get additional impressions. So in the early climb, those two basic things, like I know they seem so super elementary, but the monthly market snapshots and the viral videos, like that helped create credibility. And like a lot of people were watching those videos, and like you know, they weren't clicking on any buttons, but they were watching them for months and months and months. And when the time came for me to make my follow-up call, it made it a lot easier for me to close for the appointment.
Yeah, it softens the shores, right?
Yeah, so like that was probably the most those were the very inexpensive, game-changing things I did in the early climb. And then the other system I implemented in the early climb, this is like, you know, I was doing less than 100 deals, is I put in place a system called ProQuest. And I know that this sounds so stupid, but like it's crazy. So ProQuest is like a 1-800 number, and you put a sign writer on your for sale sign, and it's a 1-800 number, and they call this 1-800 number, and they type in a 4-digit code. So I had it on the sign writer. I was putting it on the sign brochure box, like on the flyer. And then I was also advertising that number on Craigslist. And my call volume went up 500%. Wow. Like it sounds like ridiculous. Like it sounds too good to be true, but I don't get paid by any of these guys, by the way. I need to go hit them up and say, you guys owe me some referral fees. Anyway, so ProQuest is only $199. Like it's really cheap. So as I started getting more listings, I was using ProQuest. And what's really cool about ProQuest is it'll ring all the agents on your team, and the first agent to pick up the call gets the lead. So it's a great way for you to, you know, be following up with the leads really quickly. So Viral Marketing and ProQuest were like some pretty game-changing systems early on, in addition to coaching that I got. And then, you know, the next thing I call it the awkward teenager stage. So that's when you've got like, you know, maybe 5, 6, 7 buyer's agents, and you're starting to build your listing inventory. Oh, I forgot one system, Vulcan 7, which we already talked about. That's a good early climb system. But the thing that I started implementing in the awkward teenager stage was I started basically injecting in buyer lead generation and spending money on Zillow, Trulia, Realtor.com, and Google AdWords. So what's interesting is like that's not rocket science. It's just you're just paying money. You know, it's like it's not like it's some crazy marketing system. I mean, you're paying for leads. You know, one little key little nugget I'll leave people with is, you know, you can on your website you can have forced registration, right? Like as soon as they see a listing, a box pops up and they have to fill in their information. My recommendation in the beginning is don't do forced registration, and I'll tell you why. With forced registration, your conversion rates are going to be horrible. They're going to go way, way, way down with forced registration. What makes Zillow amazing is that Zillow doesn't require registration. Like the consumer has to reach out to you. So like when I was running Google AdWords campaigns, like pushing leads to our website, and the conversion rates were horrible because I had forced registration. I was converting at like 1%. But then when I spent money on Zillow, Realtor.com, and Trulia, our conversion rates were like 3 to 6%. So the thing I would advise people on is don't do forced registration, and don't be afraid to spend money on very simple lead generation strategies like throwing money at Zillow, Realtor.com, Trulia, and Google AdWords. There's a lot of like really creative things you can do.
Out of those three, by the way, which gave you the most leads? Zillow, Trulia?
So it's all that's a great question. It's all a function of how much money you spend, and your cost per lead is going to vary drastically depending on the system you use. So like Google AdWords leads, for example, right now, Google AdWords and all the markets that I know of in Texas, Google AdWords leads are at about $10. You can get a real estate lead for $10. To get a lead on Zillow, you're looking at a minimum of $40 up to $120 per lead. But the conversion rate with Zillow is double what Google AdWords is. And what I think the reason, and my kind of theory is it's because one, it's not forced registration. Two, the buyers have been on there for a really long time. And so, you know, they're doing a lot of research and you know, they're reaching out to you and they're like primed and ready to go. With a Google AdWords lead, a lot of people that are, you know, 6 to 12 months out from buying, they're going on Google to start their research process. Like they haven't quite dialed in like the neighborhood they want to be in. When you're using Zillow, like you've kind of dialed in like the neighborhood you want to be in. If you think about it, if you're a buyer relocating and you don't know anything about this new area, you're going to start researching the area on Google. So the conversion cycle on Zillow and Trulia and Realtor.com is a lot shorter than it is on Google AdWords. And I think it's just a function of the way we operate as people and how we use these systems. So that's a key thing is like, you know, I hate paying Zillow. I feel like it's the Zillow monster that's trying to replace real estate agents and all this stuff. And, you know, but the leads generate very quickly. And that's really critical because when you start onboarding people on your team and you start hiring buyer's agents, your buyer agents are 100% commission. They need to start making money fast. So you want to get them really good quality leads so they start having success, they get money in the bank, and you start building momentum. So don't be afraid to spend more money on leads, like per lead, and generate less leads because it'll end up being a lot less of a time suck on your salespeople's parts, and the quality of the leads will be much better. Some things I found was like your for sale sign leads, like people that call in on for sale signs. Typically, those will convert at about 12%. So that's why ProQuest is so huge. And then like Realtor.com, Trulia, and Zillow, those are going to be like 4, 5, 6%, depending on how good your sales team is. And then everything below that is going to be like Google AdWords and Facebook. Like Facebook and Google AdWords, they're not the best quality of leads. You can generate massive numbers of leads, but quality is super important so you don't burn your salespeople and they use their time wisely.
Makes total sense. By the way, your retargeting campaigns are off the chain. In fact, I'm on Google yesterday, and because I had searched you several times, right? I mean, there was not just one spot that you'd popped up. You also popped off on the right side. I almost did a screenshot of it because there's your mug twice on my computer screen, only because I Googled you once, right? It's just, you're following me everywhere. Stop it.
So those are called, for anybody that's listening and doesn't know what that is. So retargeting ads, basically like, let's say like the viral marketing guys. If I send somebody my video email newsletter and they go to that website, then we have these retargeting ads, which Viral runs for us, and they follow people around. And, I'm not trying to sell Viral. There's lots of people that can help you do this, like set up retargeting ads. But retargeting ads are super cheap. And it's an example of how when you have lots of brand impressions and people are basically seeing like a billboard of you over and over and over, it creates top of mind awareness. So then when you go for the kill and you go to make the call and set the appointment, it makes it that much easier. And that's kind of the name of the game in marketing, is just hit as many brand impressions as possible to build that top of mind awareness. So those are, a lot of that stuff I just talked about is very early climb specific. Some of the more advanced like marketing stuff that is like super effective. Actually, I shared this with you yesterday, Sean, is we've been doing newspaper advertising. And I know that sounds like crazy to be advertising in a newspaper, but we've been doing what's called native content, where we get a journal.
Here, actually.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep, that's it.
Let me just show you guys what this is. Should be this page right there. Oh, there he is again.
So the key thing about that article is that I had a journalist write that article, and they interviewed some of our clients and talked about their experience. It looks like native content. It doesn't look like a billboard ad. So people are it's called, in marketing, they call it long form content. And so you can get, a lot of really good stuff in that type of content if you can get a reader to actually read it. So newspaper has been like crazy effective, and it's very cheap because now like newspapers are struggling. So like I get that put in the newspaper, and it circulates to I think like 120,000 people in the Austin area, and it only cost me $1,500 to get to 120,000 people. I mean, that's crazy. It's amazing. And so like the thing that you got to think about with like homeowners is the average homeowner is 45 to 65 years of age. Like that's the typical middle of the bell curve of homeowners. And so that demographic, they are like very quickly getting very savvy on the computer and adopting Facebook, but they still love the newspaper, and they still read the newspaper, and they see a lot of credibility in the newspaper and the journalists that write those articles. So you can do some really cool ninja stuff, like creating native content that looks like a journalist wrote it, and just share stories about your clients and like the experience they went through. So like that article, I don't remember which one that was you had, Sean, but I know you just picked that off my reception desk. But
I did, yes. And really, the article, what it's about is that the climate in real estate is changing, and now is the time to sell. Don't kick yourself if you wait 6 months to list your home. In essence, you're fishing for listing leads with this article, and it looks like the paper actually wrote the article and featured you as an expert in the community. So it's just brilliant.
So like that article, I've got some of the most expensive listings I've ever gotten from doing newspaper advertising. And it's people that, had owned their house for like 20 years, and they own like in the core of Austin where home prices have gone up the most. And so we've gotten like $1 million, $2 million listing from the Austin American Statesman. So don't count the old school marketing out. It still works. There's a formula to it, just like everything we talked about. So the newspaper has been a really cool one, and one you can integrate in the awkward teenage stage. And then the third stage, and this is what I recommend implementing once you're doing about 150 to 200 transactions, is doing mass media. So like radio, TV, billboards, those things, that can have a huge impact. And now I've got to tell anybody listening to this, like you need a lot of money in the bank, because radio and TV and billboards take 6 months before you even start to see a single dollar come back. And the secret sauce with radio and TV and billboards is you have to spend an incredible amount of money. Like the salespeople at these mass media places will try to get you on board and say, oh, I can get something that'll fit your budget, and it's only going to cost like $1,500 or $2,000 or $3,000. Like, don't let them sucker you in. Like, you have to spend significant money, because with mass media, there's lots of people advertising in that space. And so consumers are being thrown lots of different messages. And so what that means is like your brand impressions have to be crazy high. Like you've got to have really high frequency in order to keep that top of mind awareness, because there's so much stuff being thrown at consumers on radio, TV, and billboard. but they're incredibly effective. And that same demo of 45 to 65, I'm a late millennial, and so anybody listening to this, don't take this personally, but for whatever reason, and maybe this is just, maybe you'll correct. I don't know how old you are, Sean. I have no idea how old you are. Are you
46?
36? How old are you?
36. I wish. No, I'm 46.
So, like, for some, I feel like the 45 to 65 demo, you know, they've been on the radio TV thing for a long time. Like, that's how they grew up, gaining. You know, that's how they got the news, was through radio and TV. And so they place a lot of trust in radio and TV. And so it creates an immense amount of credibility when you actually do radio and TV. And if you do it correctly and you implement the right formula, because there's a million ways to screw up radio and TV, by the way. There's a formula to it, and you can waste hundreds of thousands of dollars trying to figure it out. But you literally can become a celebrity in your marketplace utilizing radio, TV, and billboards. But there's a formula to it, and you need a lot of money. And don't let someone sucker you in thinking you don't have to spend a lot of money, because you're just going to blow your cash and it's not going to do anything for you. And you got to be in it for the long haul and commit to it for at least a year. And then really in year 2 is when you'll see like exponential growth.
That's great advice, Chris. Good job. So make sure that you've got at least 6 months reserved on any new market initiative that you're going to employ, because if you run out of money, then you run out of money and you're not going to be able to continue pushing forward with that, and the results just don't show up. So I typed into the chat bar, guys. You know, Icon can coach you. I can coach you personally for an hour every single week for just $97 a month. It's called our Icon Accelerator Program. So yes, it is a group format, yet I have Jay Izu, who wrote the book Social Mediology. He shares his social media marketing moment during our time together, and I'll interview some really cool people during our weekly sessions together. Plus, I get to share with you the models and the tools and the systems, the scripts, the dialogues that are undoubtedly going to push you forward. So if you're interested, just take a look at the chat bar. I said text Accelerator 97 to 512-572-4266. And if you want to get Chris's PDF of the what was it called again? The launch.
So it's like a launch program for our buyer's agents.
There you go. Yeah, for buyer's agents
program. We'll send that out in the PDF when you buy a copy of our book. You can go to wirbook.com, and it's a landing page where you can register for the book. We'll send it out to you immediately. You'll get it within a couple of days, and we're going to post it on Amazon in the next couple of months. We just published this book like six to 8 weeks ago, and I wanted to know who my readers were so I could connect with them and get feedback about the book. So that's why we've got the book for sale on wirbook.com. But it will be on Amazon in the coming months. But I'm definitely not, Sean, I'm literally only doing this for you. So
I know. We decided to do this yesterday. I said, Chris, what can you give to these guys? I mean, they're investing their time, their energy. They want to learn from you. What are you willing to share? And, you know, one of the things I love about Chris is he's totally magnanimous, guys. He wants to see everybody around him successful. And he said, well, I'd be happy to share this, and recognize there's a lot of brain damage went into writing that book, right? Because it was written in a fix, prevent mentality. Like, this happened. What do we do about it? How do we make sure it never happens again? And then how do we scale the training of our buyer's agents? So I told him that most of our listeners are probably in that phase of getting ready to leverage through additional salespeople, hiring their first buyer's agent, or looking to add their second or third buyer's agent. You know, what could we provide to him? He said, listen, if they buy a copy of my book, I'll give them this. And I'm thinking, wow, I can't imagine that not everybody on this line is going to go in and buy your book, get their hands on that thing, and be able to train their buyer's agents really aggressively. So guys, if you have any questions for Chris, I know you got to run. So do I. I get to run out to the airport.
Hey, man, I want to just thank you for this award here, man. This is unbelievable. I was unbelievably humbled and so gracious. I mean, you're a living legend in this industry, and I'm so honored and humbled to have been named the Icon of the Month. And I mean, the people you've brought on your show, I mean, like, I've gotten to meet some of them, and they are, I mean, unbelievable. You know, guys like Mark Spain and what's the guy with Century 21? The guy that, I mean, kills it on the inside sales stuff. Big Infusionsoft guy. Gosh, what's his name? You interviewed him. He was freaking awesome. Anyways, I know it'll come to you. He's on the East Coast. Huh?
Was it John Murray, Craig Northrup, Brian North?
No, dude on the East Coast. He's a big Infusionsoft guy.
Yeah, that's Greg Harrelson. Sorry. Yes. He's a total stuff, just like you.
Yeah, it's like, man, I mean, I'm super honored. Like these people you've had on your show are like such, I mean, they're like on a whole nother universe. And I'm striving to catch up to these guys. And I hope I can give, a little value through my book and maybe this Jumpstart guide to some of your listeners. And just so appreciative and honored to be on here with you.
Fantastic. Real quick, somebody typed into the chat bar, there is no website at WLRbook.com. Did I do that wrong?
So it's WIR. It stands for Waters International Realty. So WIRbook.com.
Okay, got it. I just typed it in the chat bar for everybody there. So Chris, I appreciate your time. If there's no additional questions from the audience, we're going to let you get on with your busy day, man. Thank you for carving out this time for all of us, but it's I'm humbled. I'm glad you showed the award because every one of our icons gets that, and I trust you're going to display that somewhere.
Yeah, man, this is going on in the front of the office.
I love it. Sure. I love it. Absolutely. So, guys, thank you for investing your time with us. Thanks for being here with Chris and I. Junkie, thanks for the wonderful comments, and everybody else. I look forward to our next month's webinar. By the way, here's who we're going to be interviewing. It is the most recent past president of CRS. Her name is Lee Brown, and Lee is a dynamic speaker. She's also an author, and guys, she is a very dynamic individual. So go to iconcoachinre.com. Go ahead and get registered for that early. I believe they've switched it over from Chris to Lee now. So Chris, I trust you'll at least catch the recording of that or be there live. I would love to see you typing in there as well. And guys, until next time, I want you to be on purpose, be productive, and become an icon. Chris, any last words before we let him go?
Man, stay humble. Find a coach, man. And I know you're in the coaching business, John, but dude, the coaching changed my world. Changed my world. Find somebody that is sitting where you want to be. Get a coach to help you get there. That's my partner, man.
Yeah, and the thank yous are pouring in. So thank you all. Have an outstanding week, guys. Talk to you next month. If not sooner. Bye-bye.
Right.